Rain stitched silver lines across the tall glass of Haneda's departures hall, turning every light into a watercolor blur. Mina Sato tightened her grip on the small hand beside her and angled their umbrella so the boy's hoodie stayed dry. Kenji Morales, 3 years old, cheeks like peaches, eyes the soft brown of warm tea, hugged a paper tube to his chest as if it were treasure. "We're on time, buddy," Mina said, breath curling in the cool air. "Aurora Pacific to Sydney, overnight. You'll see Mama in the morning." Kenji nodded, solemn, the way kids do when they're holding something too big for words. His paper rattled. Inside was his drawing, thick blue crayon for the sky, a big white airplane with smiley windows, and a woman in a graduation cap waving from the ground. The caption he dictated, letters uneven and brave. "For Mama, the sky is yours." They cleared security with the elastic patience familiar to anyone who has shepherded a child across a border. Shoes off, shoes on, a beep that wasn't them. A polite bow from a guard whose stern face softened when he noticed the paper tube. The concourse smelled faintly of coffee and ozone. A soft announcement pinged overhead. "Aurora Pacific Flight 871 to Sydney, now boarding soon from Gate 110. Families and those needing extra time may approach the podium." "See?" Mina smiled. "That's us." Kenji craned his neck, mouth forming a little "oh" as he found the plane through the window. An Aurora Pacific Dreamliner sat at the end of a glossy jet bridge, its tail lit with the company's sunburst logo, orange and rose like a small sunrise. He pressed his nose to the glass, left a foggy oval, then drew a smiley face in the fog with his fingertip. "Don't miss the stairs this time," Mina teased, remembering the last trip when he insisted on counting each step and tripped at 9. He giggled, a quick hiccup of sound that made the nearby gate agent look over with a reflexive smile. They reached the podium. Mina handed over their passports and the printed doctor's note she'd kept in a transparent pouch like a shield. The note was simple and clear. Kenji experiences sensory overload in loud, chaotic environments. Quiet seating preferred when possible. Noise-canceling headphones recommended. The agent read it, nodded, and typed. "You've been reassigned to 1D and 1E, Ms. Sato," the agent said. "First class has space tonight because of a last-minute cancellation." Mina blinked. "Are you sure?" "It's a courtesy from operations," the agent said softly, eyes flicking toward Kenji, toward the paper tube in his hand. "We like graduation stories." Kenji hugged the tube tighter. "For Mama," he told the agent with the gravity of a diplomat. "Give her our congratulations," the agent said, printing 2 boarding passes. "And enjoy the quiet." On the walk down the jet bridge, the rain whispered on the roof panels like someone tapping piano keys from far away. Kenji's sneakers squeaked on the rubber mat. He watched the corrugated walls move past, peeking through the oval window at the plane's curved white shoulder. The air smelled like cold metal and something sweet. Maybe the bakery bag in Mina's tote. "Do I have to whisper?" he asked, voice barely above 1 anyway. "Use your soft voice," Mina said, brushing a damp curl from his forehead. "We'll be cozy." He nodded, satisfied with the rule. He liked rules he could see. Lines to stand behind, numbers to count, a spot for his cup holder. The way the plastic bracelet on his wrist blinked a tiny green pulse when he was calm. Mina watched that light now, steady, even, then glanced at the small round case clipped to his backpack. He followed her gaze and patted it. "Headphones," he said, proud to remember. "Just in case," she said. "But I think tonight will be a story." At the door, 2 flight attendants stood like bookends in Navy uniforms, smiles practiced and warm in different ways. The one on the left had laugh lines and the kind of eye contact that lets you breathe. "Welcome aboard," she said, bowing slightly to Kenji. "Congratulations to Mama." Kenji bowed back, unsure why, but delighted with the choreography. The attendant laughed softly and pointed them down the aisle, gesturing past a heavy curtain tied back with a ribbon. Beyond it, cream leather seats that looked like clouds with armrests, polished wood that caught the cabin lights and held them like stars. First class had the hush of a library and the spark of a secret. Soft voice, Kenji reminded himself. Half to Mina, half to the seat. They found 1D and 1E, side-by-side suites with wide ottomans and little shelves already set with water in glass bottles. The pillowcases wore the aurora sunburst like a cheerful badge. From somewhere up the aisle, the smell of espresso drifted over, edged with chocolate. Mina lifted Kenji into his seat. He sat tall, spine straight, as if bravery had a posture. She unclipped his headphones case, set it by his elbow, then slid the doctor's note into the seat pocket where anyone could see it if they chose to look. Her hands moved with the efficiency of practice, blanket folded at the feet, drawing tube upright in the corner cup holder where he could reach it without bending. He held the tube to his heart. "Don't let it crumple," he whispered. "It won't," Mina said. "We'll deliver it flat and perfect." The other attendant, a woman with a sleek bob and pearl studs, approached, tablet in hand. She glanced at the name on the screen, at Kenji's age, at the note peeking from the pocket. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "May I offer you something to drink?" she asked, tone neutral. Then a small pause. "We do have very quiet cabins." Mina returned the smile, measured. "Thank you. We'll keep voices low. He has a medical note." She touched the paper with one finger, not defensive, just factual. The attendant's gaze flicked to the note and away again, the way a passerby acknowledges a street sign. Kenji didn't see the flicker. He leaned toward the window, watched ground crew dance in reflective vests. A man rolled a cart like a toy the size of a refrigerator. The rain had softened to a mist that made the wheels write cursive on the tarmac. He raised the tube, then hesitated. "Can I look?" "Just once?" Mina nodded. "Careful corners." He slid the paper free with two hands, reverent. The airplane he'd drawn looked a little like the one outside. Round nose, bright tail, windows like happy eyes. The woman in the cap was smaller than he meant to draw her, which made her look far away. He frowned and traced the outline with a fingertip, as if he could pull her closer through the crayon. "It's perfect," Mina said, and meant it. "Mama will cry the good kind." He smiled, the brief, shy kind that only lives on children's faces. He smoothed the paper across his lap, tiny palm pressing out bubbles that didn't exist, setting it just so on the side shelf where a neat stack of napkins waited. He looked at the neat stack, liked the way the corners aligned. The cabin light dimmed to a dusk blue. The first attendant, the one with the laugh lines, returned with a small tray and a whisper. "Apple juice for our artist," she said, setting it down on the shelf opposite the drawing. "And hot tea for you, ma'am." Kenji glanced at Mina for confirmation. "May I?" "You may," she said. He took a small sip, eyes closing at the sweetness. The tiny green light on his wrist glowed steady. Outside, the Dreamliner's wing flexed against the rain. The curtain behind them fell back into place with a soft hiss. Mina exhaled. "We're okay," she murmured, mostly to herself. Kenji believed her. He folded his hands around the paper, careful not to crease the edges, and watched the runway lights blink in a patient rhythm. Somewhere inside the airplane, a chime sounded, and a soft voice began the safety briefing. The world felt ordered, gentle, like a bedtime story about to start. He did not yet know how quickly a quiet room can turn. For now, his sky was small and kind, and the drawing lay unrumpled and brave under his fingers, waiting for morning. The jet doors sealed with a deep, soft thud, and the world outside disappeared behind layers of steel and silence. The hum of the cabin pressurizing filled the air like a low heartbeat. Mina buckled Kenji in and smiled at him, though she could feel her own pulse quickening from the long day. "Ears pop soon, okay? Just swallow when you feel it," she whispered. Kenji nodded, tapping his small wristband as it blinked green. "Still okay," he said proudly, and Mina chuckled. From the aisle, a new voice glided in. precise, smooth, and flat. Good evening, passengers. Welcome aboard Aurora Pacific Flight 871 to Sydney. The woman speaking stood with perfect posture, hands clasped neatly in front of her Navy uniform. Yuri Tanaka, first class lead. Everything about her seemed measured. Her bun wound tight as a clock spring, her lipstick the same deep coral as the Aurora logo, her voice practiced to the syllable. When her gaze fell on Kenji, she hesitated. Not long enough for most to notice, but long enough for Mina to feel it, that flicker of evaluation, the tiny pause that always came right before judgment. "Excuse me," Yuri said, her tone as crisp as her uniform. "Is the child traveling alone with you, ma'am?" "Yes," Mina replied. "I'm his aunt. His mother's in Sydney." Yuri's eyes moved to the doctor's note tucked in the seat pocket, the bold header that read sensory sensitivity, quiet environment recommended. Her brow tightened almost imperceptibly. "I see," she said. "For future reference, we do have a family cabin section that may be more—" She paused, searching for a word that didn't sound like appropriate. "Comfortable for young travelers." Mina's smile thinned. "He's sensitive to noise. This cabin's quieter. That's why your staff seated us here." Yuri's lashes fluttered. "Of course," she said, voice lowering just slightly. "Though our first-class service prioritizes tranquility for other passengers as well. We have strict regulations about—" Before she could finish, Kenji pointed toward the window, excitement bubbling up. "Look, trucks, Auntie Mina, they're dancing." A baggage cart was weaving between fuel trucks outside, lights flashing rhythmically in the drizzle. The joy in his voice was small but bright, a spark that cut through the cold professionalism. Yuri blinked, expression tightening again. "Sir," she said automatically, then corrected. "Young man, please keep your voice low." Kenji froze as if he'd been scolded in church. His hands fell into his lap, tiny shoulders curling inward. The green light on his bracelet blinked twice in quick rhythm, yellowing slightly before steadying. "It's okay, Kenji," Mina whispered, leaning closer. "You didn't do anything wrong." He nodded, though he didn't look convinced. Yuri straightened, pulling her composure tighter around her like a blazer. "If you require anything, please press the call button," she said, already stepping away. Her heels clicked down the aisle like punctuation marks, precise, final, unyielding. For a moment, Mina stared at the seat back ahead. The soft ambient light made the polished wood glow gold, like the inside of a jewelry box. Around her, the other passengers had already settled into the hush of privilege. Newspapers unfolded, champagne poured, screens glowing with silent films. Kenji leaned toward her again, voice small. "Auntie, did I break the quiet?" She swallowed. "No, sweetheart. Some people just forget how to listen." He looked at her, trying to decide whether to believe that. The drawing lay on the shelf beside him, perfectly flat under a napkin. His fingers hovered near it like he was guarding something alive. Mina wanted to reach out, to hold his hand, but the tension in the cabin pressed on her chest. She wasn't afraid. Not yet. Just aware of that old familiar current of judgment that followed children like turbulence. She tried to distract him. "Want to see where we're flying?" she asked, pulling up the map on the seat screen. A blue arc stretched from Tokyo to Sydney, dotted with waypoints. "That's where Mama's waiting." Kenji traced the line with his finger, his movement slow and deliberate. "Long line," he murmured. "I can wait." His patience, that little boy brand of serious bravery, broke something soft inside her. She exhaled through a smile, brushing a crumb from his lap. Half an hour later, as the plane taxied, Yuri reappeared. She checked the seatbelt lights, the table latches, the folded blankets. Everything about her moved in clean, efficient angles, except her eyes, which never quite settled. When she reached Mina's row, she paused again. "I'll need to confirm the child's seating," she said. "First-class policy doesn't typically accommodate minors under 6. Mina turned, caught off guard. "Your colleague assigned it," she said evenly. "For medical reasons. It's in the system." Yuri held up her tablet, scrolling with a flick of her manicured finger. I understand, but protocols exist for safety. Children this age can be unpredictable. Other guests expect a certain environment. The words landed sharp, sterile, like a needle through silk. Mina's jaw tightened. He's not a disruption. He's a child, and he's sick sometimes when it's too loud, that's all. I see, Yuri repeated, tone clipped. Nevertheless, company guidelines require I-verify placement. Kenji watched them, confused, eyes darting from one adult to the other. Auntie? He whispered. Mina forced a calm smile. It's fine, love. She's just doing her job. But she could feel the heat rising in her chest. It wasn't just the implication that they didn't belong here. It was the sterile way the woman said child, like it meant inconvenience. Finally, Yuri nodded once. Very well. But please ensure he remains quiet during service. She turned sharply, heading toward the galley, every step a statement. When she vanished behind the curtain, the hush that followed felt heavier than before. Mina glanced around. 2 businessmen across the aisle pretended not to have heard. A woman in pearls tapped a message on her phone. No one met her eyes. The privilege of silence had its own gravity. It pulled everything decent inward, kept it from escaping. Kenji leaned closer, whispering, Did we do something bad? Her heart pinched. No, sweetheart, you didn't. Sometimes people think quiet means kind. It doesn't always. He blinked, processing that, then gave a small nod, as if promising to remember. The engines roared softly to life. Lights along the ceiling dimmed to a cool, dusky blue. Mina reached for his hand, squeezed once. We're flying now, she said. Outside the window, rain streaked backward across the glass as the plane began its long, smooth glide toward the runway. Kenji pressed his forehead against the pane and watched the reflection of his bracelet glow steady green. The Dreamliner shuddered gently, lined up with the lights, and the world began to move faster. As they lifted off, Tokyo shrank into a glittering web beneath them. So many tiny lights, each one someone's life, someone's choice. In seat 1E, a boy held a crayon drawing against his chest and whispered, Mama's in the light. In seat 1D, his aunt blinked hard, steadying her breath. She didn't notice the attendant 2 rows ahead glance back once, eyes sharp as frost, before disappearing into the galley, where a policy manual waited on her tablet like scripture. And somewhere above the clouds, the story of silence was just beginning to write itself. The seatbelt sign blinked off with a soft chime. Somewhere near the galley, a faint hiss of steam announced the start of the dinner service. The cabin lights lowered to a warm amber glow, wrapping first class in a cocoon of luxury and quiet. Kenji sat upright, small legs tucked under the blanket Mina had draped across him. His drawing rested neatly on the shelf beside his apple juice, its colors bright under the lamplight. He traced the crayon lines with his finger, careful, slow, as if memorizing them. Is Mama sleeping now? He asked. Maybe, Mina said. When the sun comes up for us, it'll still be dark there. So maybe she's dreaming. Kenji nodded, serious. Then I'll be quiet. He meant it. His voice was so soft that Mina had to lean close to hear him. He pulled the blanket to his chin, satisfied with his promise, and stared at the window. Clouds were silver gray outside, stretched thin across the moonlight. Across the aisle, Yuri Tanaka moved down the row with her tablet, her expression composed, every gesture practiced. She refilled champagne, adjusted a napkin edge that had strayed half an inch, replaced a fork with one polished, just a bit shinier. When she reached Mina's row, she glanced at the drawing on the shelf. A small crease appeared between her brows. Please keep personal items clear of the service surface, she said. Mina smiled politely. Of course. She started to lift the drawing, but Kenji's hand shot out, palm flat. Night, he blurted, a little louder than intended. It'll bend. The word hung in the air, no, and in that hushed cabin it sounded like a siren. The 2 businessmen looked up. The woman in pearls frowned. The air pressure shifted, invisible but unmistakable. Yuri's smile froze. "Sir," she began, the automatic tone clicking back into place. "Please use your inside voice. You're disturbing the other guests." "He's just protecting his drawing," Mina said quietly. "It's delicate." Yuri ignored her. She crouched slightly, bringing herself level with Kenji, though her voice stayed sharp. "We must respect the space here, young man. Everyone has paid for peace." Kenji's lower lip trembled. "It's for Mama," he whispered, almost inaudible now. Mina felt the temperature in her chest drop. "He'll move it," she said quickly. "It's fine." But Yuri's eyes were still on Kenji, as if the small act of defiance, the word no, required correction. "Ma'am," she said to Mina, "children under 6 are not permitted in this cabin during night service. I'll see if we can reseat you." Mina blinked, disbelief pushing up through her calm. "Excuse me? We were assigned here by your gate staff for medical reasons." "I'm aware," Yuri said, straightening. "But regulations are regulations. The atmosphere here must be preserved." "Preserved?" Mina repeated. "He's 3, not a hazard." By now, Kenji's eyes had filled, wide and shining. He reached for the paper, trying to slide it toward himself, but his small hand caught the edge wrong. The paper crinkled. His face crumpled with it. "It's ruined," he gasped. Mina leaned over, whispering, No, it's okay." But Yuri's hand moved first, quick, annoyed, surgical. She snatched the paper from his fingers. "Please don't," Mina began. The sound that followed wasn't loud, but it was clear. A sharp, flat crack that sliced through the low hum of the cabin. Yuri's palm had met the side of the boy's cheek. Time stopped. For one breath, the only sound was the quiet whir of the air system. The amber lights seemed to freeze mid-flicker. Kenji didn't cry at first. His hand went to his face, eyes wide with shock. The paper fluttered to the floor, half folded, smeared with the wet shine of apple juice that had tipped in the scuffle. Mina's chair hit the aisle as she stood. "What did you just do?" Her voice shook, not with volume, but with disbelief. Yuri took half a step back, her own breathing fast now. He was striking out. "He's 3, Mina said, voice breaking. "He's 3 years old." Across the aisle, a man in a gray suit shifted uncomfortably. The woman in pearls looked down at her hands. No one moved. The cabin, built for silence, obeyed its own rule too well. Kenji started to cry then. Not loud, just a small fractured sound that didn't seem to belong in such a polished place. Mina knelt beside him, gathering him close, feeling the tremor in his tiny body. The side of his face was turning pink under the soft light. "It's okay," she whispered, though she didn't believe it. "You're okay, baby." Yuri's mouth opened, closed. Her eyes darted to the curtain leading to the galley. "Ma'am, please sit down. We can discuss this privately." "Privately?" Mina repeated, looking up at her. "You hit a child. There's nothing private about that." Yuri's composure cracked, just slightly. She looked around, waiting for someone, anyone, to back her up. But the other passengers kept their eyes on their screens, on their glasses, on anything but the scene unfolding 2 seats away. The quiet that followed was worse than shouting. It was the kind of silence that carries guilt for everyone inside it. Kenji hiccuped against Mina's shoulder, small breaths jerky, eyes glassy. His smartwatch blinked from green to yellow, picking up the change in his heartbeat. Mina noticed it out of the corner of her eye and pressed her lips to his hair. "Shh, shh. It's okay." The word felt useless. Yuri reached down, picking up the wet paper, now torn across the wing of the drawn airplane. She hesitated, then tried to hand it back. "I'll replace it," she said flatly. "I can get you another." Mina didn't take it. "You can't replace what you just did." The attendant froze, the paper trembling slightly in her hand. Something like shame flickered across her face, so quick Mina almost missed it. But then her training took over again. Spine straight, voice controlled. "If you continue to raise your voice, I'll have to ask." "Raise my voice?" Mina's laugh was bitter and small. "You raised your hand." For a long moment, neither of them moved. The hum of the engines filled the space where words couldn't. Then, quietly, Mina turned back to Kenji. His tears had slowed to hiccups now, but his eyes stayed distant, fixed on the half-torn paper in Yuri's grip. The crayon airplane still smiled from its crease, as if it didn't know it was broken. "Do you want to sleep?" Mina asked softly. Kenji shook his head. "It hurts," he whispered. "Here." He pointed, not to his cheek, but to his chest. Mina's throat tightened. "I know," she said. "I know, baby." She rocked him gently, humming something tuneless under her breath. Just sound, no words, because the right ones didn't exist. Yuri stood a moment longer, then turned sharply and walked back toward the galley. The curtain swayed behind her, closing with a whisper. The cabin returned to silence, but it wasn't the peaceful kind anymore. It was a silence that had weight, a silence that remembered. Mina pressed her hand over Kenji's wrist, watching the bracelet's light flicker yellow, then orange. "It's okay," she murmured again, though her voice trembled. Outside, the clouds thickened, hiding the moon. The Dreamliner flew on through the dark, and somewhere in its quiet belly, a small boy's trust in the world cracked like a thin layer of ice. The curtain that separated first class from the rest of the plane swayed with every small bump of air, a flimsy wall between luxury and conscience. Mina sat frozen in her seat, Kenji asleep at last against her chest, one tiny hand clutching the torn paper like a flag of surrender. The side of his cheek had faded from red to pale, but her heart hadn't slowed since it happened. She stared at the seat back in front of her, but she wasn't seeing it. She was replaying the slap, the sound, the disbelief, the way no one had moved. Around her, the passengers pretended to sleep, pretended not to know. Even now, the faint clink of glassware and the smell of reheated truffle butter leaked through the curtain, as if nothing had cracked open on this flight. From behind the partition came the faint hiss of whispers, the crew talking low. Mina could make out a name. Tanaka. Another voice, younger, uncertain. "Should we report it?" Then silence again. The injustice burned in her stomach. Not because of the slap itself, but because the system, the one her brother had always said was built on accountability and care, was about to smooth over the truth like turbulence never happened. She leaned her head against the cool window and breathed. Kenji's smartwatch glowed faintly against his wrist, picking up the small rhythms of his sleep. Green again. Safe, for now. Inside the galley, Yuri Tanaka stood with her back to the metal counter, eyes locked on the reflection in the stainless steel. The mark of her own hand still tingled. She had washed it twice, though no one had asked her to. She could hear the faint murmur of the passengers. Her pulse was still hammering from what she'd done, but she couldn't let it show. Not here. Not after 20 years of climbing through uniform ranks and policy manuals that said, "Control the cabin, preserve the atmosphere." She'd done everything right, she told herself. She'd enforced regulation. She'd protected first class from chaos. That was her duty. That was what the manual said. But somewhere deep inside, a small trembling part of her whispered the truth. She hadn't acted from duty. She'd acted from anger. Her colleague, Aiko, stepped closer. "Yuri, he's just a kid." Yuri flinched. "Don't start." "I'm serious," Aiko said quietly. The whole front row saw. "If that mother files a complaint..." "She's not his mother," Yuri snapped. Then, softer, "She's just a guardian. People like that always want upgrades they don't deserve." Aiko's face stiffened. "You don't know their story." Yuri opened her mouth, closed it. Her reflection stared back, hard and unyielding. For the first time in years, she didn't like the woman in the mirror. She straightened, adjusted her blazer. "Finish service," she said flatly, "and keep the curtain closed. Back in her seat, Mina tried to ground herself. The bracelet's small glow comforted her, but she couldn't stop thinking about what Kenji's father, her brother, would say if he knew. He built this airline for families like ours, she thought. He trusted people like her. She wanted to believe in the system. She'd always believed that quiet dignity wins, that decency finds a way through the noise. But now, sitting in this hush that smelled of money and shame, that belief felt paper-thin. Kenji stirred. His eyelashes fluttered. "Auntie?" he mumbled. "Shh, it's okay." She was mad, he whispered, still half asleep. "Did I break the rules?" Mina's throat closed. "No, sweetheart. You reminded them they had hearts." He blinked slowly and drifted off again, his hand still holding the crumpled drawing. A movement at the front caught Mina's eye. Aiko, the younger attendant, slipping through the curtain with something small in her hand. She crouched beside Mina's seat, her voice a whisper. "Ma'am," she said softly, glancing toward the galley. I'm sorry for what happened. It wasn't right." Mina searched her eyes. Real apology, not corporate. "Will anyone do anything about it?" Aiko hesitated, then looked at the bracelet on Kenji's wrist. "Does that have flight link tech?" "Yes. Heart rate, cabin sync." "Why?" Aiko nodded slowly. "Then it's already been logged. The system flags elevated vitals from passengers under 6, especially in first class." Mina's heart skipped. "You mean someone saw?" "If his data pinged the safety network, it goes straight to HQ, Aiko said. "They'll review the incident feed in real time." Mina exhaled shakily. A thread of hope, thin but golden, began to wind its way through the heaviness. Aiko stood quickly. "I'll do what I can," she whispered, then disappeared back through the curtain before Yuri could return. In the cockpit, a quiet alert blinked across the flight deck console. Child distress event. Source: Cabin 1D video log available for internal ethics channel. The captain's brow furrowed. He reached for his headset. "Ops, this is Flight 871. We've got an anomaly on passenger monitoring. Confirm?" A calm voice crackled through. "Confirmed, Captain. Maintain course. HQ has been notified. Continue as normal." He hesitated. "Do we intervene?" "No," came the reply. "It's being handled from Tokyo Command." Back in the galley, Yuri adjusted the coffee service tray, pretending not to notice the slight tremor in her hands. The intercom light flickered once, then again. She pressed the button. "Flight 871, this is Command," a voice said, measured but firm. "We're reviewing an ethics flag triggered from your cabin. Please ensure all passengers are secure and await instructions." Her breath caught. She glanced toward the curtain where Mina sat just beyond. The world seemed to tilt. "What kind of flag?" she asked, trying to keep her tone neutral. "Passenger welfare," the voice replied. "We'll be transmitting a message to the cabin shortly." When the intercom went silent, she felt the air leave her lungs. For the first time in her career, the system she'd worshipped had turned its gaze toward her. Mina looked up as every seatback screen flickered to black, then glowed faint blue. The hum of conversation quieted. A logo appeared. Aurora Pacific, Ethics Review in progress. A collective murmur rippled through the cabin. Then came the voice, calm, familiar, unshakably steady. "Good evening. This is Arjun Morales, CEO of Aurora Pacific Airlines. We're aware of an incident on board Flight 871 involving a young passenger. Effective immediately, this flight will undergo an internal review upon landing. Our commitment to dignity, safety, and respect is non-negotiable." Kenji stirred, blinking awake. "Daddy?" he whispered, eyes wide. Mina's breath caught in her throat. On the screen, Arjun's voice continued, soft but resolute. "To the crew, remember that power without compassion is failure. And to every passenger, thank you for your patience as we make things right." The cabin fell utterly still. Yuri stood frozen behind the curtain, the color drained from her face. Mina reached for Kenji's hand. His bracelet blinked green again, steady and calm. For the first time that night, She let herself breathe. Outside, the Dreamliner drifted through the ink-blue sky, steady, silent, and changed forever. The cabin lights dimmed to a twilight hush as Flight 871 began its slow descent toward Sydney. Outside, dawn was breaking. A thin line of coral light stretched across the horizon, bleeding gently into the clouds. But inside, the air was heavier than morning should ever feel. Mina sat upright, her heart still racing from the announcement that had silenced every passenger 30 minutes earlier. Across every screen, the Aurora Pacific logo still glowed faintly blue, looping the same sentence in soft Helvetica. Ethics review pending, cooperation appreciated. No one spoke above a whisper. The calm was eerie, but charged, as if everyone on board had suddenly realized they were inside a story that would follow them long after landing. Kenji, still tucked under his blanket, stirred. "Are we there?" "Almost," Mina said. Her voice sounded steadier than she felt. She brushed a lock of hair from his forehead, trying to ignore the slight tremor in her own hand. "Just a few more clouds." He blinked at the window, eyes wide with the first light of morning. "It's pink," he said softly, "like Mama's flowers." Mina smiled faintly. "Yes, sweetheart, just like them." The intercom chimed, the captain's voice, composed but strained. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We'll be landing shortly. Please remain seated as we coordinate with ground control for an immediate debrief. Thank you for your patience." The word debrief landed like a quiet thunderclap. Across the aisle, passengers traded glances. The businessman who'd ignored everything earlier was now sitting stiffly, hands clasped. The woman in pearls stared straight ahead, her mascara slightly smudged. No one reached for champagne. No one dared recline their seats. And in the galley, hidden behind the curtain, Yuri Tanaka sat alone on the fold-down jump seat, uniform immaculate, expression fractured. Her tablet rested in her lap, replaying the feed she couldn't turn off, the silent clip of her own hand striking a child. Over and over. Each loop made her flinch. Each one cracked something deeper. She'd wanted control. Now she had none. Aiko appeared beside her, hesitant. "They've requested you stay seated when we land," she said softly. "Security and management will board first." Yuri nodded once. Her throat worked, but no sound came. "I didn't mean—" she started, then stopped. The words were useless now. Too thin to hold the weight of what she'd done. Aiko's eyes were kind, but sad. "Meaning doesn't fix hurt," she said. "Action does." The phrase struck her harder than any reprimand. In the cabin, Mina looked down at her nephew. He'd fallen asleep again, exhaustion overtaking adrenaline. His small hand still clutched the torn drawing, the creases softened from so much holding. She smoothed the blanket over him and let herself breathe, watching the rising sun flare over the curve of the wing. The light was soft and golden, the kind of beauty that didn't feel fair after so much cruelty. But something in her chest began to loosen. It wasn't victory, it was relief. Quiet, human, exhausted relief. For the first time since takeoff, she believed the system might actually see. Her phone buzzed with a cabin-wide notification. Aurora Pacific Statement. Effective immediately, passenger protection protocols will be reviewed under live supervision by CEO Arjun Morales upon landing. Mina stared at the message, then at Kenji's bracelet, still glowing calm green. That little device, that quiet signal, had started all of this. Not by rage, not by scandal, but by truth. She whispered, "You saved yourself, kiddo." The landing gear lowered with a muffled thud. A ripple of wind brushed the fuselage, and the seatbelt signs lit up again. The passengers braced, hands gripping armrests, the sound of engines slowing filling the silence. The runway appeared below, thin silver stripes cutting through the mist. Mina's heart thumped once, hard. "Hold on tight," she whispered to Kenji. The wheels touched down with a smooth bounce, then a long, steady roll. The Dreamliner slowed, engines humming low. Applause didn't follow this time, only the faint sigh of relief that it was over. The captain's voice returned. "We've arrived at Sydney International. Please remain seated for a special security briefing. We appreciate your understanding." A collective exhale filled the cabin. Then the door clicked open. Light flooded in. Bright, clean, real. 3 Aurora Pacific ground officers stepped aboard, followed by a woman in a tailored gray suit with the airline's emblem pinned near her collar. Her presence was calm, authoritative. "Good morning," she said. "My name is May Park, Director of Passenger Relations. We'll begin a formal review of an in-flight ethics violation. To the passengers of first class, thank you for your cooperation. Ms. Tanaka, please remain seated." Every head turned slightly toward the curtain. Yuri stood slowly, her composure cracking under the weight of 100 eyes. She opened her mouth, then stopped. Her hands trembled as she unclipped her ID badge. "I understand," she said quietly. Mina watched, holding her breath. The officer nodded. "You'll have the chance to explain during the review process." As Yuri stepped into the aisle, her gaze caught Mina's for the briefest second. It wasn't defiance. It was regret, raw and unguarded. She looked at Kenji, sleeping peacefully, then lowered her eyes and followed the officers out. The cabin stayed silent. No one applauded, no one jeered. It wasn't triumph, it was consequence. When they disembarked, the terminal was already alive with murmurs. A row of Aurora staff waited near Gate 5, not with cameras, but with apology kits and care specialists. Mina clutched Kenji's small hand as they stepped into the soft morning light that spilled through the glass. A familiar voice called her name. "Mina." She turned. Arjun Morales stood just beyond security, still in his business suit from Tokyo headquarters, tie loosened, eyes red from sleeplessness. The sight of him almost broke her. She knelt and whispered to Kenji, "Look, sweetheart." Kenji blinked, squinting through the brightness. "Daddy?" He let go of her hand and ran, arms open. Arjun caught him mid-stride, lifting him high. The boy's bracelet blinked once, steady green, then went still. Arjun pressed his face into Kenji's hair. "You're safe now," he whispered. Mina stood a few feet away, wiping her eyes. Arjun looked at her, guilt and gratitude warring in his face. "I saw everything," he said quietly. "He shouldn't have had to be brave." "He was," Mina said. "Braver than anyone on that plane." He nodded, looking back at his son. "Then we'll make sure it means something." By noon, headlines would already be spreading. Aurora Pacific grounds flight over child assault. CEO intervenes mid-air. But inside the Morales family lounge, the story was smaller, softer. Kenji sat on the couch, crayons scattered across the table. He drew a new airplane, bigger this time, soaring above clouds, its name written carefully in block letters. "Sky belongs to everyone." Arjun watched him, the faintest smile ghosting his tired face. He reached for his phone, opening the company's internal announcement draft, and typed slowly. "Effective today, Aurora Pacific will launch the Passenger Dignity Initiative, a mandatory empathy and conduct program for all employees, beginning with leadership." He paused, then added one more line. "Because power isn't control, it's care." Mina looked over his shoulder, her voice low. "That's the story people will share." He nodded. "Let them. It's the right one." Outside, the morning sun poured across the tarmac, gold on silver wings. Inside, a child pressed his final crayon stroke across the paper and whispered, "Done." The airplane on the page smiled wide, flying clean through the light. And for the first time since takeoff, the world felt like it was healing. 2 weeks later, the skies above San Francisco shimmered the color of dawn metal, soft gray turning to gold. The glass facade of Aurora Pacific headquarters mirrored that light, tall and reflective, as if the building itself wanted to prove it had nothing left to hide. Inside, the air was quiet but alert. Reporters waited in neat rows behind velvet ropes. Cameras perched like hawks above tripods. Employees, pilots, attendants, and mechanics in fresh uniforms filled the atrium, their faces a mixture of pride, guilt, and curiosity. At the center stood Arjun Morales, CEO, flanked by Meena and little Kenji. The boy's green bracelet blinked softly under his cuff, its pulse slow and even. A podium bore a single line of engraved text: Passenger Dignity Initiative, because power is care. Arjun looked out across the room and took a breath. Not the kind you take before a press conference, but the kind you take when you've survived something that could have broken you. 2 weeks ago, he began, voice low but firm. Our flight from Tokyo to Sydney diverted after a child was harmed in our first-class cabin. That child was my son. The crowd stirred. A faint ripple of shifting feet, murmurs that didn't quite rise to speech. I've replayed that moment more times than I can count, Arjun continued. Not as a CEO, but as a father. And I've asked myself what kind of culture allows silence to grow so thick that people forget how to act human. He paused, letting the weight of the words settle. The answer, he said quietly, is one that values protocol over people, order over empathy. Behind him, Meena watched the audience, faces tight, a few attendants blinking back tears. For many, it was the first time their leader had spoken without script or slogan. Kenji sat on a high stool beside her, sketch pad open, crayons scattered. He was drawing another airplane, this one full of passengers with big smiling faces and a tiny pilot waving from the cockpit. Arjun turned toward him for a moment, then back to the microphone. Kenji taught me something that night, he said. That courage isn't loud. It's the quiet voice that says, do what's right, even when no one else will. The screens behind him flickered to life, showing footage from the new Aurora Pacific training program. Attendants learning conflict de-escalation, managers practicing empathy scenarios, engineers auditing in-flight monitoring systems for fairness and transparency. We can't undo what happened, Arjun continued, but we can ensure it never happens again, not by fear, but by reform. Every cabin crew member will complete a new ethics and empathy certification. All passenger monitoring data will be audited by an independent human rights panel. And we are introducing a new division, the Quiet Justice Board, to review every incident with transparency. He looked up, eyes steady. Starting today, the skies will belong to everyone. From the crowd, hands began to rise. A journalist called out, Mr. Morales, was Miss Tanaka, the attendant involved, fired? Arjun hesitated, then he shook his head. No. She was placed on restorative leave and is participating in the new empathy pilot program. She requested to meet with Kenji and apologize face-to-face. We agreed. Meena blinked, surprised. She hadn't heard that last part until now. A second reporter asked, Why forgiveness? Arjun smiled faintly, the kind that didn't reach his eyes but carried truth. Because justice without restoration is just another kind of cruelty. If we want to heal a system, we have to heal its people. The crowd fell silent again, not out of discomfort, but reflection. Later that afternoon, after the cameras were gone, the lobby emptied except for the Morales family and a handful of staff. A door opened quietly behind them. Yuri Tanaka stepped through. She wasn't in uniform anymore, just a simple gray blouse, no makeup, her hair loose around her face. She held her ID badge in both hands like it weighed 100 pounds. Meena felt Kenji tense beside her. Yuri stopped a few feet away, her eyes red. Mr. Morales, she said softly, I don't have words big enough for the harm I caused. Arjun nodded once, but didn't interrupt. She looked down at Kenji, her voice trembling. I was raised to believe following the rules made me strong, but I see now, it made me blind. She bent down to his height. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed you to know. I'm learning how to be kind again. Kenji tilted his head, studying her like he was deciding whether her voice matched her eyes. Then, slowly, he lifted a small sheet of paper from his sketch pad. It was a drawing of two planes flying side by side, one painted blue, one white, with a bridge of clouds between them. He handed it to her. "This one's for you," he said. "So, you don't feel alone in the sky?" Yuri blinked, tears spilling before she could stop them. She took the drawing carefully, nodding. "Thank you," she whispered. "That's more grace than I deserve." Mina pressed her hand to her mouth. Arjun turned away for a moment, swallowing hard. In that quiet space, something shifted. Not just between them, but in the air itself. The kind of silence that once hurt now felt like healing. That evening, on their flight home, Kenji and Mina sat by the window again. The seatbelt light flicked on, and the cabin glowed soft gold. Kenji held a fresh piece of paper across his knees, coloring steadily as the plane rose through the clouds. He drew people of all colors and ages, smiling, waving, sharing seats. Above them, in wide block letters, he wrote, "Sky belongs to everyone." Mina leaned over. "You think Daddy will like that?" He nodded seriously. "He already does." Below them, the Pacific shimmered in the last light of sunset. The wings sliced clean through the horizon, glowing like forgiveness. Mina rested her head back, exhaling the breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding for days. Beside her, Kenji yawned, the bracelet on his wrist blinking a calm, steady green. Somewhere in the cockpit, the captain's voice came over the speaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for flying with Aurora Pacific. We hope you felt cared for today." Mina smiled faintly. This time, she believed it. As the plane soared higher into a blushing sky, Kenji finished his drawing and whispered the words under his breath like a promise, like a prayer. "Everyone belongs." And for the first time since that night, the sky felt vast again, wide enough for both justice and mercy to fly side by side. The Aurora Pacific Ethics Division in Tokyo didn't look like a courtroom. It looked like a library made of glass. No judge, no witness stand, just rows of screens humming quietly, each one showing a piece of the truth. On that rainy morning, Flight 871's data replayed in 3 synchronized streams. 3 windows into a single moment that had changed the airline forever. The first feed came from the passenger's mobile recording, shot by the quiet woman from seat 2A. Her hands had trembled as she held her phone, but the footage was steady enough to capture everything: the snap of Yuri's voice, the slap that followed, and the stillness after. The second feed displayed the biometric logs from Kenji's wristband: heart rate spike, cortisol surge, stress signal escalation, all in perfect alignment with the timestamp on the video. And the third, perhaps the most haunting, was the cabin's noise reduction log, the system designed to filter sounds for passenger comfort. On screen, a digital waveform pulsed once, twice, then spiked sharply at 22:43:07, the sound of a hand meeting skin. That was the exact second the company's silence cracked. Mina sat in the observation gallery with folded hands, her expression unreadable. Kenji wasn't with her today. He was at home with his father, coloring the world he was still learning to trust again. The ethics board sat opposite, 6 members in uniform gray, each with their own tablet displaying synchronized data. On one end of the long glass table sat Yuri Tanaka, her uniform gone, replaced by a plain navy suit. She looked smaller now, still neat, still careful, but with a new fragility that came only when a person finally stops pretending they're right. The chairwoman, a composed woman named Dr. Hana Ito, began softly. "Ms. Tanaka, these 3 pieces of evidence, video, biometric, and system audio, confirm alignment within a margin of 1 second. Do you dispute any of it?" Yuri shook her head. "No, ma'am." Her voice was barely audible. Dr. Ito nodded once, then turned to the screen. "Then let's talk about why." The playback began. On the video feed, Kenji's small voice echoed faintly through the speakers. "No, it'll bend." Then the motion blur. Yuri's hand, the flinch, the frozen air. Yuri watched the image of herself with a kind of numb disbelief. like seeing a stranger wearing her face. She remembered that moment differently, fast, defensive, panicked. But seeing it slowed down, framed by the tremor of a child's fear, made her stomach twist. The room stayed silent until Dr. Ito spoke. You were trained to de-escalate. What did you feel right before that strike? Yuri hesitated. I felt disrespected, she said finally. But not by him, by everything. The noise, the looks, the memory. Dr. Ito studied her. The memory? Yuri's jaw tightened. When I was 8, I flew this same route. I sat in economy with my mother. I asked to see first class, just to peek. And a steward pulled the curtain shut in my face. Her voice broke just slightly. I remember the sound it made, like the world closing. A beat of silence passed. Then Mina's voice, quiet but clear. And you became the curtain. Yuri's eyes flicked toward her, not in anger, but realization. Dr. Ito nodded. That's how cycles continue. But here's the thing, Ms. Tanaka. The system caught what humans ignored. It remembered what everyone else tried to forget. She gestured to the synchronized screens. That's not punishment. That's clarity. The next segment of evidence played. The biometric data expanded. The wristband's log showing the exact second Kenji's heart rate shot from 92 to 148. The system timestamp blinked red. Notice the latency, said one analyst from the tech team. The ethics portal received this data automatically. It flagged the event before the plane even landed. Mina exhaled quietly. She hadn't realized how fast it all happened, how the silent mechanisms of empathy had already begun working while the rest of the plane stayed frozen. Dr. Ito spoke again. When this technology was proposed years ago, people said it would make us less human. But maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it just holds us accountable when we forget how to be. She turned toward Mina. Ms. Sato, the woman in seat 2A. Her submission to the crew ethics portal helped trigger this chain of events. She's chosen to remain anonymous, but we've invited you to speak for the passengers. What would you like to say? Mina stood, her voice calm, controlled, the same way she'd sounded when she soothed Kenji that night. Everyone thinks the slap was the worst part, she said. It wasn't. It was the silence after. Every person who looked away. That's the sound I can't unhear. She paused, scanning the room. But what gives me hope is this, that the system didn't look away. It saw what we couldn't face. And maybe that's what justice is supposed to do. Not humiliate the guilty, but awaken the asleep. For a long moment, no one spoke. Even the hum of the monitors seemed to lower, like the building itself was listening. When the hearing ended, Dr. Ito summarized the conclusion. The evidence triad, video, biometric, and cabin log, will be entered as precedent for future ethics cases. Ms. Tanaka, you are suspended from active duty but accepted into the Passenger Dignity Rehabilitation Program. If completed successfully, you may return in an instructor role. Yuri nodded slowly, eyes glistening. Thank you, she whispered, meaning it not as mercy, but as responsibility. Dr. Otto turned to Mina. And Ms. Sato, on behalf of Aurora Pacific, thank you for your quiet courage. You reminded us that empathy is the best safety protocol we have. Mina inclined her head. Thank you for seeing. Outside, the rain had stopped. The city smelled like new beginnings. Wet pavement, diesel, and cherry blossoms too early for the season. Mina walked across the plaza with her umbrella half open, the world gleaming in reflections. Her phone buzzed. A message from Arjun. Just saw the final report. It's official. The system works, and it feels human again. She smiled faintly, glancing up at the faint slice of blue sky. Behind her, in the ethics division window, 3 screens still glowed, still looping the synchronized data, now marked case closed. 3 fragments of truth, perfectly aligned. Kenji's drawing waited back home on the refrigerator door, the one that said sky belongs to everyone. And for the first time, Mina believed it wasn't just a wish. It was becoming policy. She closed her umbrella, feeling the soft drizzle start again, and whispered to herself, "Let it rain. The sky remembers." The sun hung low over the Sydney skyline, throwing long golden streaks across the Aurora Pacific Training Center. Inside a quiet glass-walled conference room, a small camera blinked red, recording the first official restorative ethics review session in the company's history. At the table sat 3 people: Yuri Tanaka, hands folded, eyes tired but clear; Mina Sato, calm but guarded, a notebook in front of her; and beside her, little Kenji Morales, legs swinging from the chair, clutching his new drawing. A white plane with a golden heart on its tail. The air hummed with silence, not cold like before, but heavy with meaning. "Thank you for coming," said Dr. Lian, the mediator, her voice soft. "This is a conversation, not a trial. We're here to understand what happened, not to repeat it." Yuri nodded once, throat tight. "I understand." Mina's fingers brushed the edge of her notebook. "I'm here because Kenji wanted to come. He wanted to tell you something himself." Yuri's eyes flicked toward the boy, then away. "He doesn't have to," she said quickly. "He shouldn't have to." Kenji looked at her for a moment, the serious, thoughtful stare of a child who has seen too much but somehow still chooses kindness. "I want to," he said. Mina placed a hand over his. "It's okay, sweetheart. You can." He nodded, then turned toward Yuri. "I didn't like the slap," he said simply. "But I don't hate you." Yuri's breath hitched. The words landed with the force of something too pure to protect against. He lifted his drawing and slid it across the table. "You can have this. It's us on a plane, and nobody's crying this time." Her eyes blurred. She reached out, fingertips trembling, and took the paper like it was something sacred. "Thank you," she whispered. You're braver than anyone I've ever met." Kenji tilted his head. "Auntie says brave means quiet, like when you're scared but do the nice thing anyway." Mina smiled faintly. "That's exactly what it means." Dr. Lian gave them a moment before speaking again. "Ms. Tanaka, we'd like you to share what was going through your mind that night. Be honest. No one here is recording judgment." Yuri swallowed, her hands tightening in her lap. "When I saw the boy in first class, I froze," she began. "It reminded me of something I thought I'd buried." She looked down, gathering breath. "When I was 8, my mother worked for an airline. Once she brought me on a staff standby ticket. Middle of the night, same route, Tokyo to Sydney. We sat up front by mistake. The head attendant scolded her in front of everyone. She cried the whole flight. I promised myself I'd never be the one humiliated again." She paused, tears slipping before she could stop them. "I thought being strict meant I was in control, but when I saw Kenji's drawing, I didn't see a child. I saw my old fear, and I took it out on him." Her voice cracked. "I broke every rule that actually matters." Mina exhaled slowly. For the first time, she saw the full picture, not an excuse, but a root. The line between victim and villain had blurred into something human. She said quietly, "Fear makes us small, but admitting it makes us honest." Yuri met her gaze. "Do you think I can fix it?" Mina thought for a moment. "You can't undo it," she said. "But you can make sure the next scared person you meet gets treated better than you were. That's how the system heals, one person at a time." Dr. Lian nodded approvingly, scribbling a note. "That's the principle behind the Passenger Dignity Initiative," she said. "We reform by reflection, not punishment." Outside the window, a plane took off. The Flight 871 Memorial Jet, its tail glinting gold as it lifted into the wide Australian sky. The low rumble filled the room like a heartbeat. Yuri turned toward the sound. "That's her, isn't it?" she asked softly. Mina smiled. "Yes, the one Kenji named." Kenji beamed. "It's called Quiet Sky. Daddy said it means people remember good things louder than bad ones." Everyone in the room chuckled, not out of humor, but out of relief. Later, as the meeting ended, Yuri stood at the door, hesitating. "I don't expect friendship," she said. "But I'll be on the ground crew for Quiet Sky next month. If you ever fly again, I'll make sure your seats are safe." Mina extended her hand. "You don't have to say that." "I do," Yuri said. "Because you were right. Fear makes us small. I'd like to be big again." They shook hands. Kenji, not wanting to be left out, stretched out his tiny hand too. "Promise to be nice to other kids?" Yuri crouched to meet his eyes. "Promise," she said. "Then we're okay," he declared, satisfied. As they walked out into the sunlight, Mina looked down at her nephew and smiled. "You know," she said, "not many people get to see the world fix itself in real time." Kenji shrugged in his small, wise way. "Maybe the world just needed a nap." She laughed, loud and free this time. That evening, back at the Morales residence, Arjun watched the footage of the session from his office. The recording wasn't meant for release, but for the internal ethics archive, a lesson for future crews. He paused on one frame, Kenji handing the drawing across the table. The way Yuri's hand shook as she took it. The way everyone's shoulders seemed to drop at once, like gravity itself had softened. He whispered to himself, "That's what reform looks like." Then he added a note to the internal file. "Let this clip be the first module in the empathy training archive, not as evidence of wrongdoing, but as proof that courage can be quiet and still change everything." He clicked save. Outside, through the tall windows of his office, the quiet sky jet rose into the dusk. Its golden tail gleamed like forgiveness, catching the last of the light. Down below, on the airport road, Mina and Kenji stood together, watching it ascend. The boy waved his small hand high until the plane was just a dot in the fading blue. Mina looked at him, her voice soft but steady. "What do you think the sky feels like right now?" Kenji thought for a long moment, then he smiled. "Peaceful," he said. "Like everyone up there finally remembered how to listen, and for the first time since that terrible night." Mina believed him. Because somewhere between the clouds and the ground, between mistake and forgiveness, the system had done something extraordinary. It had learned to feel. The tarmac shimmered in the late afternoon heat as Aurora Pacific Flight 871 rolled to a stop at Cairns International Airport, its wheels sighing against the concrete. What had started as an ordinary red-eye from Tokyo to Sydney had ended here, unplanned, heavy with consequence. From the cockpit, the captain's calm voice broke through the cabin intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We've made a precautionary landing in Cairns under company direction. Please remain seated until the medical and corporate teams have completed their checks. We appreciate your understanding." No one moved. No one spoke. The air was thick with the quiet weight of something moral, like the stillness after a confession. Mina sat rigid in 1D. Kenji asleep against her chest, his small hand resting over the green bracelet that had, unknowingly, triggered the chain reaction. It blinked softly. Steady now. But 2 hours ago, it had pulsed red. That pulse had reached the airline's ethics portal, activating an internal distress alert. The system had listened when people didn't. Across the aisle, the other passengers sat in strained silence. The woman in pearls scrolled through her phone with shaking fingers. One of the businessmen had quietly folded his newspaper and set it aside. They didn't dare make eye contact with Mina, but they didn't look away from her either. Guilt has a way of demanding witnesses. And behind the curtain in the galley, Yuri Tanaka waited, her back pressed to the cool metal counter. The intercom's click still echoed in her chest. She wasn't sure what she feared more, the arrival of security or the sound of her own heartbeat. She stared down at her hands. The mark of the slap was gone, but the heat remained, crawling under her skin. In her mind, the scene replayed over and over. The sound, the silence, the eyes that pretended not to see. Aiko, her fellow attendant, appeared beside her. "They're boarding the response team now," she said quietly. "Medical first, then management." Yuri nodded, but her throat locked. "And the passengers? They'll all be interviewed separately. You too." "Of course," Yuri whispered, voice brittle. "Protocol." Aiko hesitated, then added, "For what it's worth, I sent the clip to the ethics portal. The video." Yuri's head snapped up. It wasn't revenge," Aiko said quickly. "It was truth. The boy's vitals matched the time of the incident. The system confirmed everything. The captain had no choice but to divert." Yuri's eyes glistened. "You could have just let it die quietly." Aiko met her gaze evenly. "So could you." Yuri looked away, the words cutting deeper than she expected. Outside, paramedics climbed the boarding stairs, their vests flashing under the sun. Mina watched through the half-closed curtain as they approached, a strange calm settling over her. She wasn't angry anymore, just tired. A young medic crouched beside her seat. "Ma'am, we're here to check your son." Kenji stirred, blinking at the bright light. "We stopped?" he asked, groggy. "Yes, sweetheart," Mina said softly. "Just a little detour." He frowned. "Did I break the plane?" Mina smiled weakly. "No, love, you fixed it." The medic smiled at that, checking the boy's pulse. "He's okay," he said. "A little adrenaline spike, but stable." A man in a dark blazer approached next. Mr. Kato, Aurora Pacific's head of cabin operations. His tone was careful, formal, rehearsed. "Ms. Sato," he said, bowing slightly. "On behalf of Aurora Pacific, I want to personally apologize for the incident you experienced. We are deeply ashamed." Mina met his eyes. "Are you sorry for what happened? Or for who saw it?" He blinked, caught off guard. "For both, I suppose." "That's a start," she said quietly. Behind him, another figure stepped through the curtain. Yuri. Her posture was stiff, her uniform immaculate again. But her face, pale, raw, trembling, betrayed the effort it took to stand. "Mina," she began, voice barely audible. "May I?" Mr. Kato cut in sharply. "Ms. Tanaka, this is not the—" "It's okay," Mina said, raising a hand. "Let her speak." The officer hesitated, then nodded. Yuri swallowed hard. "I don't have words good enough for what I did," she said. "You trusted me with safety, and I gave you harm. I broke every rule I claimed to protect." She turned toward the boy. "Kenji, I'm sorry." Kenji looked at her, unsure. He didn't flinch this time, just studied her with that calm, unfiltered gaze children have before the world teaches them judgment. "It's okay," he said quietly. "Just don't hit anybody else." The word struck harder than any reprimand. Yuri nodded, eyes glistening. "I won't, ever." When they stepped off the plane, the tropical air hit like warm water. Reporters had not yet arrived, but the airport was already buzzing. Whispers, cameras, executives in crisp suits moving with uneasy urgency. Mina carried Kenji down the stairs, the sunlight soft on their faces. At the base of the stairway stood a group of airline officials, some bowing, some avoiding eye contact. One man stepped forward, the regional director, older, dignified, visibly shaken. "We're arranging accommodations and transportation for all passengers," he said. "And Ms. Sato, your family has been notified." Mina nodded, exhaustion written in every line of her face. "My family already knows," she said. "They built this airline." The man froze, realization dawning. "You're—" "Yes," she said simply. "But right now, I'm just an aunt trying to make sure my nephew sleeps without fear." Her words hung in the air. The director bowed low. Inside the terminal, passengers from Flight 871 gathered in a waiting area, hushed and restless. When Mina entered, the noise dropped to nothing. People looked up, not at her, but at Kenji, his small frame dwarfed by the bright concourse lights. Then, one by one, they stood. No one spoke. But the gesture, quiet, collective, human, filled the space with a kind of reverence no apology could match. Aiko, still in uniform, approached Mina, handing her a small envelope. "For you," she said. "It's from HQ. They wanted to thank you for handling everything with dignity." Mina smiled faintly. That's an expensive word. Not this time, Aiko said. They mean it. Mina slipped the envelope into her bag without looking. Then I'll believe them when I see change. Outside, the grounded Dreamliner gleamed under the sunlight. Silver, sleek, but no longer spotless. For the first time, Mina saw beauty in that imperfection. Kenji tugged at her sleeve. Auntie? Yes, love? Can we draw a new plane when we get home? Of course, she said. What will we name it? He thought for a moment, serious as always. Grounded Sky, he said finally, because even when it lands, it's still brave. Mina smiled through her tears. That's perfect. She looked one last time at the aircraft that had carried both cruelty and courage, silence and awakening, and whispered, "Thank you for stopping when the world wouldn't." The engines clicked as they cooled, releasing one last breath of heat into the air. And beneath the hum of the airport, the quiet sound of reform had already begun. The press conference took place on a cloudless morning in Sydney. The marble floors of the Aurora Pacific headquarters glimmered under the light. Too clean, too polished, like a stage trying to forget the play it hosted. Rows of reporters filled the atrium, microphones lined up like tiny weapons of truth. Behind the podium stood Arjun Morales, his tie slightly askew, eyes tired but steady. On the screen behind him, the Aurora Pacific logo faded into a new banner. Passenger Dignity Initiative. Accountability begins with us. The crowd buzzed softly until he raised a hand. 2 weeks ago, Arjun began, voice even but weighted. One of our flights diverted to Cairns after an incident that should never have happened. A child was struck by one of our crew members. My son, Kenji Morales. The murmurs rippled like wind through tall grass. Cameras flashed, but Arjun didn't flinch. I stand here not as a CEO defending a brand, he said, but as a father demanding change from the very system I built. Mina watched from the side of the stage, arms crossed, heart full. Kenji sat beside her, swinging his legs, headphones around his neck. He was drawing again, his comfort language, sketching a plane over water, the tail painted gold. Arjun continued. For too long, the airline industry has treated dignity as an amenity, something offered to the privileged, not a right shared by all. That ends today. He paused, letting silence work like punctuation. Effective immediately, Aurora Pacific is implementing the following reforms. A new passenger dignity clause, guaranteeing that any customer, regardless of class, age, or background, can trigger an internal ethics review through our mobile app. A $650,000 fund to establish the Child Safety and Empathy Reform Program, supporting training for all flight crew. Mandatory psychological and empathy certification for leadership and frontline staff. Transparent reporting of all in-flight misconduct, accessible publicly every quarter. He looked down for a moment, then back up, his voice softening. And for those who ask about accountability, yes, the crew member involved, Ms. Yuri Tanaka, has been placed in the Passenger Relations Reform Team, not to erase her mistake, but to ensure no one else repeats it. Justice must repair, not destroy. A reporter raised a hand. Mr. Morales, isn't that lenient? Shouldn't she be fired? Arjun shook his head. If punishment alone could fix cruelty, we'd have done it by now. But it's empathy that prevents it. The room quieted. Somewhere in the back, a camera clicked softly, capturing that single sentence that would later headline dozens of articles. When the press event ended, Arjun stepped down, his breath shaky for the first time. Mina met him halfway. You sounded like Dad, she said softly. He smiled faintly. I hope that's a good thing. It is, she said. But Dad never had to explain why the system broke. You did, and you did it with grace. They walked to the side hall where Kenji sat waiting, holding up his drawing like a reporter holding a scoop. Look, Daddy, he said proudly. It's our new plane. It's called Hope 1. Arjun crouched, looking at the drawing. The gold tails shimmered under the atrium lights. The sun, drawn, smiling in the corner. "Can I hang this in the lobby?" he asked. Kenji's grin widened. "Only if you promise not to let it crumple." "I promise," Arjun said. Outside the building, a crowd had gathered. Employees, passengers, even strangers who'd seen the live broadcast. When Arjun, Meena, and Kenji stepped out, they were met not with applause but with something quieter: respect. A woman in an airport maintenance uniform stepped forward, holding out a small bouquet of paper cranes. "For your son," she said, "for what he reminded us." Kenji took them gently. "Thank you," he whispered. The crowd parted as they walked toward the edge of the plaza, where a new sign had been unveiled overnight. It was small, simple, unpolished, yet carried the gravity of something sacred. Aurora Pacific Charter of Dignity. Every passenger carries a story. Every story deserves respect. Meena read it aloud, quietly, her voice trembling. Every story deserves respect. She looked at her brother. "That's what you were trying to build all along, isn't it?" Arjun nodded. "I just forgot that systems without souls collapse," Kenji reminded me. That afternoon, as the family prepared to leave, the board released the financial report. Diversion cost, $42,500. Compensation to affected family, $7,500. Training investment, $650,000. PR losses, negligible. But the real currency was public trust. For the first time in weeks, Aurora Pacific's social feeds filled not with outrage, but with something rarer: hope. One viral comment summed it up best. They didn't bury the story, they turned it into a compass. At sunset, the three of them stood on the balcony overlooking the tarmac. A plane taxied into view, its tail glowing gold, letters newly painted in calm white. Passenger dignity. Kenji pressed his face against the glass. "That's Hope 1, isn't it?" Meena smiled. "Looks like they renamed it for you." Arjun knelt beside him. "You know, that plane isn't just metal and engines anymore. It's a promise." Kenji tilted his head. "Promises can fly?" "Only if people believe in them," Arjun said. Kenji thought for a long moment. "Then we should make lots of promises." Meena laughed softly. "That's what stories are for, sweetheart." As the plane took off, its engines hummed like a hymn, leaving a streak of gold against the fading blue. Arjun wrapped his arm around his sister's shoulder, watching the silhouette disappear into the distance. "Do you think people will forgive us?" he asked quietly. Meena nodded. "They already have. You didn't hide behind power. You used it." He let out a long breath, as if releasing the last of his guilt into the sky. Kenji's voice rose softly beside them, half whisper, half song. "Everyone gets a seat. Everyone belongs." And as the glow of Hope 1 faded into the clouds, Aurora Pacific's logo shimmered faintly on the horizon. Not as a brand, but as a belief reborn. For the first time, the company that had once flown above people's heads had finally learned to fly with their hearts. It was late afternoon in Sydney when Yuri Tanaka walked through the glass doors of Aurora Pacific's Human Resources building. The light outside was warm and forgiving, but inside, the air felt dense, sterile, almost judicial. Her uniform was neatly pressed, her hair tied back with precision, but her eyes gave her away. No amount of symmetry could hide the sleepless nights, or the silence that had followed the flight heard around the world. She approached the reception desk where a young staffer looked up, clearly recognizing her. "Miss Tanaka," the woman said softly, voice neutral but kind. "They're waiting for you upstairs, conference room 4. Yuri nodded, clutching the envelope in her hands, a folded apology letter she'd written 3 times and rewritten 4. She had no idea if she'd be allowed to read it, or if it even mattered anymore. Upstairs, 3 people sat at a long wooden table. Mr. Kato, head of cabin operations, composed but visibly weary. Dr. Leon, the same ethics mediator from the restorative session. And Arjun Morales, CEO, the father of the boy she had hurt. When Yuri entered, the room fell silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. She stopped just inside the doorway, her palms slick against the envelope. Mr. Kato was the first to speak. "Ms. Tanaka, please sit." She did. The leather chair creaked quietly, as if even it wasn't comfortable being here. Dr. Lian opened the meeting. "This session is not disciplinary," she said calmly. "The company has already made its public statement. What we're here for is accountability, the kind that isn't for headlines." Yuri nodded, voice soft. "I understand." Arjun leaned forward slightly. His tone was even, almost disarmingly gentle. "I've read your statement. I know you've participated in the Passenger Relations Reform Program, but I wanted to hear directly from you what you think happened that day." Her throat tightened. "I lost sight," she said simply, "of what my job meant, of what people mean." Arjun's gaze didn't waver. "And now?" "Now I understand that service without empathy isn't order, it's control. I thought I was upholding standards, but I was really protecting fear." The words hung in the air. There was something raw in them, unpolished but true. Dr. Lian nodded slowly. "You've completed all restorative modules. Your peers report improvement. But healing isn't just professional, Ms. Tanaka. It's relational." Yuri hesitated. "If I could, I'd like to read something." Mr. Kato gave a small nod. "Go ahead." She unfolded the letter carefully. Her voice trembled but didn't break. "To the passengers of Flight 871, I once believed that dignity was something you earned, by status, by silence, by perfection. I know now it's something you owe to everyone you meet, especially those who can't defend themselves. I can't erase what I did to that child, but I can carry it as a promise, to protect others the way I should have protected him. I am sorry, not because I was caught, but because I finally understand the weight of what I became when I stopped seeing people as people." When she finished, the room stayed quiet. Even Mr. Kato, normally clinical, sat motionless. Arjun exhaled slowly. "Do you know what surprised me most that day?" he asked. She looked up. "What?" "That after everything, my son still looked at you with pity, not hatred." Her breath hitched. "He's 4, Arjun continued. "He doesn't understand corporate hierarchies, or policies, or bias. He only understands kindness, and somehow he still believes you can be kind again. That's why I didn't fire you." Yuri blinked, stunned. You knew that?" "I watched the footage," he said. "The way you froze after it happened. That wasn't pride. That was horror. You knew immediately you'd betrayed something sacred." She swallowed hard. "I'll never forgive myself." "You don't have to," Arjun said quietly. "You just have to make sure the next scared person in your care feels safe." 2 hours later, the meeting ended with no press releases, no cameras, no applause. Just signatures on a paper titled Restorative Completion and Future Role Assignment. When Yuri stepped outside, the sun had dropped low, painting the sky in amber streaks. She paused on the sidewalk, the city noise rising around her, car horns, chatter, the sound of planes passing overhead. For the first time in months, she looked up without flinching. A Dreamliner cut across the fading sky, its tail painted gold. The same golden hue from the Passenger Dignity Initiative posters now hung in every terminal. Across its fuselage, the name gleamed in soft letters, Hope 1. Her breath caught. She watched until the plane vanished into the clouds, then took out her phone and opened the Aurora Pacific employee portal. Her new assignment flashed across the screen. Position, Passenger Care Mentor Base. Haneda Airport Program. Quiet Wings. Empathy Training Division. At the bottom, a note signed by Arjun himself. "This isn't redemption. It's responsibility. Teach them what you learned the hard way." She smiled, small, sad, but real. That evening, as she walked along the harbor, a small figure came running down the promenade. It was Kenji, hand in hand with Mina, his aunt. They had just come from a public event at the museum, where Aurora Pacific had unveiled a child passenger exhibit titled Every Seat Matters. Yuri froze, unsure if she should turn away. But Mina saw her first and smiled. "Ms. Tanaka," she called. "Good timing. Kenji wanted to show you something." The boy ran up, holding a folded paper airplane. He offered it with both hands. "It's for you," he said shyly. Yuri hesitated. "For me?" "Yeah. Auntie says people can change if they want to." Her throat closed. "Do you forgive me?" Kenji thought for a moment, the kind of pause that only children can make feel like eternity. Then he nodded. "If you say sorry again." Yuri knelt down, tears stinging. "I'm sorry, Kenji." He smiled, satisfied. "Then it's okay." Mina placed a gentle hand on Yuri's shoulder. "The world doesn't fix itself in a day, but it just did a little bit more right now." Yuri nodded, looking at the tiny paper plane in her hand. The word hope was scribbled on its wing in crayon. As she watched him run ahead toward the setting sun, she whispered to herself, "Hope won." And for the first time since that terrible flight, she felt the ground beneath her, solid, forgiving, human. Because justice, she realized, wasn't about grounding others. It was about learning how to fly again. The morning sun broke over the horizon like a slow exhale, washing the Sydney tarmac in pale gold. The airport was just waking, the faint rumble of baggage carts, the chatter of ground crew, the soft scent of jet fuel mingled with dew. Inside Gate 14, Kenji Morales, now 5, stood on tiptoe against the glass, watching his father's newest aircraft roll into position. Its tail shimmered under the light, gold and white, with 3 calm words etched along its body: "Where everyone belongs." Behind him, Mina zipped his tiny backpack, smiling. "You're tall enough to see without climbing now," she said. "I'm almost 6, Kenji announced proudly, pressing his palm against the glass. "Do you think she remembers me?" Mina followed his gaze to the plane. "I think she remembers everything," she said softly. "Airplanes don't forget the ones who taught them kindness." Arjun approached from behind, still in his uniform but without the weight he used to carry. "Ready for your first flight since Hope won?" he asked. Kenji nodded solemnly. "I packed crayons this time, for drawing, not emergencies." Arjun chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. "Good. Let's hope we only need art today." The 3 of them boarded with a quiet dignity. No cameras, no ceremony, just the calm rhythm of ordinary travel. Inside, the new family dignity cabin gleamed softly, its layout redesigned from top to bottom. Seats were wider, lighting warmer, and each monitor displayed a message before takeoff. "You are safe. You are seen. You are welcome." Passengers murmured their appreciation, some recognizing the Morales family but too respectful to intrude. Across the aisle, a flight attendant approached. Yuri Tanaka, no longer in navy blue, but in the new pearl gray uniform of the Empathy Mentor Division. Her badge read, "Instructor, Passenger Care Training." "Mr. Morales," she greeted, bowing slightly. "Welcome aboard." Arjun rose to shake her hand. "Good to see you, Ms. Tanaka." "It's good to be here," she said, voice steady. Then she knelt beside Kenji's seat. "And you, Captain Morales Jr.?" she teased gently. "Are you ready to inspect the cabin?" Kenji grinned, his eyes lighting up. "Everything looks perfect. You remembered the window stickers." "Of course," she said. "You designed them." He blushed. "I just drew the stars." "Well," she said, smiling, "they make the night sky less lonely." Mina watched quietly from across the aisle, the corners of her eyes crinkling. The circle had closed, not in vengeance, but in reform. As the engines began their low hum, Arjun leaned toward the window. "You know," he said to Mina, "when the world first saw the footage, I thought we were finished, but it turned out we were just starting." Mina nodded. "People didn't want perfection. They wanted proof that systems could change." He smiled faintly. "And we gave them both, progress and peace." The seatbelt light blinked off, and the plane rose gracefully into the blue. Below, the Pacific stretched like a mirror, endless, reflective, and forgiving. Kenji opened his sketchbook, tongue poking out in concentration. "I'm drawing hope too," he said. "Oh?" Arjun asked. "What's her story?" "She's smaller," Kenji explained. "She helps people who got scared of flying to try again. She never rushes them." Arjun exchanged a look with Meena, that small, knowing look shared between people who'd seen the world at its worst and still believed in its best. "That's a good mission," Arjun said. "Maybe the best one yet." Hours later, as the flight reached cruising altitude, Yuri made her rounds. Every gesture carried the ease of someone who had rebuilt herself brick by brick. She stopped briefly by Meena's seat. "Thank you," Yuri said quietly. Meena looked up. "For what?" "For letting me belong again," she replied. "For believing in change." Meena shook her head. "It wasn't belief. It was observation. You did the work. You earned it." Yuri smiled, a small, peaceful curve that reached her eyes. "Then maybe we all did." Halfway through the journey, the captain's calm voice came over the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Ito. We're flying at 35,000 feet, and I'd like to dedicate this leg of our journey to the passengers who remind us that dignity isn't a privilege. It's the air we share." Applause rose softly, not loud, but warm, sincere. Kenji clapped along, not because he fully understood, but because it felt right. Arjun reached for his son's hand. "You did that," he whispered. Kenji tilted his head. "I didn't fly the plane." "No," Arjun said, smiling. "You reminded it why it should." When they landed in Tokyo, dusk had already fallen. The terminal lights cast long golden reflections on the polished floor. Passengers disembarked slowly, exchanging nods and quiet goodbyes. At the gate, a small plaque caught Meena's eye. It read, "Dedicated to every traveler who chose empathy over indifference. Aurora Pacific, Year 2 of the Passenger Dignity Charter." Meena touched the edge of the plaque, her throat tightening. "You really did it," she whispered to her brother. He smiled, eyes soft. "No," he said. "We did." Kenji tugged on his sleeve. "Can we go home now?" "Yeah," Arjun said. "Home sounds perfect." They walked together through the terminal. The CEO, the aunt, the child who changed everything, and the woman who'd once broken a world and helped rebuild it. As they stepped into the cool night air, a new plane roared overhead, golden tail glinting against the stars. Its engines were steady, its course sure. Meena glanced up. "You think people will remember?" Arjun nodded, watching it disappear into the clouds. "Not just people. The sky will." Kenji squeezed his father's hand. "Then it's okay," he said simply. "The sky's on our side." And with that, the night settled. Calm, vast, and full of quiet promise. Because sometimes justice doesn't roar like thunder. Sometimes it drifts like clouds, silent, steady, and impossible to ignore.